Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television right now where you, the MSME, get sent a stage. We take in and answer all of your questions and queries, no matter what industry or area you're from. Today, we're talking about the hospitality industry, and I'm in conversation with Neeraj Govil, AVP South Asia at Marriott International. Thank you very much for speaking with us on Leaders of Tomorrow, Neeraj. Let's start by talking about GST, because GST is completely affected and impacted every industry.
Sure.
How is the hospitality and the tourism industry really sort of adapting to the changes that we're likely to see under GST?
So I think at the outset, I must say it's a very laudable initiative. It's something that we should have had many years ago, which we finally have. So GST is great for the economy. It's the right thing to do, and we're very supportive of it. The second thing I must say is we've had plenty of time to get prepared for GST. We've known it's going to be rolled out. So we've had adequate time to get ready for GST on that front. Implementation has been relatively smooth. We haven't had, we've had the little teething, niggling issues here and there, but by and large, the implementation has been very smooth across our hotels, all of our hotels. On the GST, from my perspective, I believe that 28% for the hospitality industry, predominantly a lot of our hotels, 18 to 28, is on the higher side. And the main concern there is that it'll make us uncompetitive when it comes to going up for, in the MICE segment and the leisure segment against other locations. Mm-hmm. So if you compare our GST rates to some of the other countries that we compete with, for international MICE, for example, for leisure, 28% is significantly higher. So there is that danger of us being uncompetitive with other locations and making us.
Are you taking representations to the government on this?
We are. We're working through industry bodies to talk to the government on this, and hopefully we'll find a resolution, the sweet spot.
Sure.
I think the other part on GST is there's been a little bit of confusion around what declared tariff is, right? The whole premise of GST in our industry is around declared tariff. There hasn't really been a mechanism to kind of go out there and say, here's my declared tariff. So that could have been spelt out in more detail and would have greatly aided implementation. Because today tariffs are dynamic. In today's world of demand and supply and all of that, tariffs are really dynamic. Tariffs change literally every day, if not every few hours. So a clearer script in terms of how we could have gone out there and declared tariff would have helped. How often are you allowed to change it? Those nitty-gritties could have been clearer. But again, we are taking this up, and I'm sure we'll find the answers to it. But by and large, it's going to be great for the economy. It's the right thing to do, and it's something we should have done many years ago.
Okay, so GST is definitely going to have a pass-through effect, which means are we going to necessarily see an increase in prices? You're saying it's dynamic, but now you're going to have the added impact of GST. So what would you have to say MSMEs and to say to MSMEs, and what would you have to say to entrepreneurs who are in this business about what is going to be the impact on pricing going forward?
Well, I don't think there is going to be an impact on pricing in the true sense. I think we have to rationalize it. I think there has to be clarity in terms of the law. People have to go about understanding this. And the sense I get is generally things will even out, right? You can get your credit backs and work through it. The key is you shouldn't profit from this. And I think the government has been clear about it. So a great understanding of the law is critically important. Things will take time. I think patience, a little bit of patience is required. And I think by and large, my advice would be that one has to really go out there and try to understand how this truly impacts their business. There's a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of rumors, I guess, more than facts out there, and one has to be clear about it in that sense.
Okay. So speaking of the government, are you happy with the regulatory framework for your industry? The government, in 2014, when it came to power, went all out to push tourism as an industry, as a sector.
Yes.
Are you happy with where we are at now?
Largely, yes. I would say largely yes, because it's great to have a government that's positive and focused on tourism. So that's great for us. The industry is booming. The industry is in a great spot right now. So clearly, a lot of what the government has done has worked for us. From the smaller things like getting the whole e-visa process up and running. That's really helped us. That's driven a lot of demand into the country. It's made it easier to get visas and get in. So that's a positive. Getting more investment into India clearly has a positive impact. There's been a boost on infrastructure spending. All that has helped drive tourism in here. There have been a few hurdles along the way. The liquor ban, for example, initially. But by and large, things are on the right trajectory, and very happy what the government's doing by and large.
Okay, let's take a step back and look at the big picture in terms of branding for hotels, and your advice really for the viewers of the show about some of the things that they should be doing and some of the things they shouldn't do. So maybe if you can say the top 3 don'ts and the top 3 do's that hotels should be looking at and entrepreneurs should be looking at, what would they be?
So talking about branding today, right? I think when you take Marriott, for example, now that we've merged with Starwood, globally we have 30 brands. That's a lot of brands to have under your portfolio. And when you look at it, we have about 15 of these operational in India, and the endeavor is to try to get more of them into the country as well. So, we have looked at brands as being phenomenal asset to the business because it allows us to do several things. Number one, it allows us to go out and operate in different tiers of the market. Yeah. So if you look at our brands today, we have great distribution in luxury, in the upper upscale, and in the moderate tier. Mm-hmm. So brands allows us to target different customers across this phenomenal opportunity that is India today in terms of hospitality. So it allows us to do that. I think the second thing it allows us to do is clearly define for our customers what our brands can offer and ensure our customers have a choice. So today, if you're a Marriott Reward member or an SPG member, which I hope you are, it is essential that you have the choice to choose what sort of brand you want for the purpose of your travel, right? And we are able to provide that. So having these brands is great for us in terms of expanding our reach and allowing our customers to make choices. Today's customer is very discerning. Today's customer wants to have the choices, right? And having all these brands allows us to provide them with that enabler, I would say, to travel. I think the other thing is that we've had to focus tremendously on creating a separate identity for each of these brands. It is essential to ensure that every brand has its own individuality. Every brand stays true to its promise and kind of delivers that brand promise in the true sense.
So I want to come back to what you're saying in terms of having a distinct identity.
Yeah.
But my question to you was also about what should they necessarily do and what should they not do if they're in this space?
I think you have to identify swim lanes for your brands, as we like to call them. You've got to make sure the brands are different. You can't have a blur of brands in there, because then that defies the whole requirement for having all these different brands. So there can't be a brand blur. You've got to be categoric about it. Your offerings and everything has to be true to that identity. Sure. You have to position this. You have to position this right for hotels, from a project stage, right up to the time your customer leaves the hotel. So the entire experience has to be true to that identity. So that's a big do in that sense. And a big don't is making sure that you don't blur these brands. You don't have overriding, overarching procedures that sort of creates a brand blur in the eyes of the customer.
Let me talk about the use of technology.
Sure.
And I'm coming to technology for the simple reason that brands like yours are competing with startups that are doing something disruptive and innovative when it comes to the hospitality or the state market. How should small startups compete with brands like yours, larger brands, and how should they be using technology? And maybe you can talk to us about how you are using technology to sort of be a differentiator.
So technology is really two things in our industry. Number one, it's an enabler. It has to be something that aids and enhances the guest experience, right? It also has to be something that ensures that the guest experience or the journey through our hotels becomes simpler and becomes dynamic. So that's really what technology is about for us. It is important in our world to ensure that customers find the technology to be adaptive, something that they can use, And we try and get a lot of stuff on your devices today. So it's easier for you to use. You're using your own device, but you're tapping into our technology. Mobile check-in is a great example of that. If you are now able to check into our hotels using your mobile device, right? So when you arrive at the hotels, all you get is your key card and you head up to your rooms. You're now able to chat with at your service agents at our hotels through your device, which is what we call as mobile chat. So a lot of these things are enablers. You can order room service through mobile chat. All of these are enablers rather than really becoming a cumbersome sore point in your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other piece I want to say here is while technology is critically important, customers need to be given a choice in terms of being able to choose whether they want to use that technology or not. Right? And a great example of that is I have customers come up to me and say, at check-in, we love interacting with your agents.
Sure.
So can you allow for that to happen too?
Sure. Let me take a very quick break on that
Sure.
note. On the other side, we will continue talking about all of the changes that we're seeing in the hospitality industry. To stay tuned. Just before we hit the break, we were talking about technology, and I want to talk about digital and how you would recommend and you think that brands should and are building identities and brands online, and something maybe that is concerning you about the negative aspect of being able to and building a brand online, something you think that entrepreneurs should perhaps not be doing.
So you have to be online today. I think one of the things you have to do is you have to be online. It's quicker reach, it's a greater reach. It's where everyone is today. So you have to play in that space, you have to invest in that space, and you have to kind of embrace that space. At Marriott today, if you look at it, we've invested a lot of time and resources into wanting to be in that space. And everything today is about getting out there and embracing social media. We also have to be careful about it. You have to be careful to what extent you get out there on social media and what image you put out there on social media. And again, that's where a significant amount of training goes into that subject. Every one of our hotels have been trained on the do's and don'ts. A great example today is if a customer posts something posts a comment out on social media through the various channels available, you have to respond instantaneously. I think gone are those days when you could say I would respond in 3 days.
Even if it is negative, or especially if it is negative.
Especially if it's negative. So it's important to respond and respond quickly. And the sincerity in that response is important. It is absolutely important to be sincere in what you put out there. You can't put out drafted statements on social media all the time and say, well, thank you for your response and here's what I'm going to do about it. I think the sincerity in that response is very important. And I can tell you from experience, you can endear customers for life. Even from a negative comment out there. If you respond in the right manner, you show care and concern, and you're genuine about it, it really helps. So you have to be out in that space. You have to, social media today is where a customer is. It is your way of connecting with your customer. It is about listening to the customer. And again, my advice would be get out there and listen to what people are saying, because today, increasingly, they're choosing to say it on social media. And you have to be out there listening to them.
Okay, so if you were to talk to our viewers about whether they should necessarily work with, say, an external agency that can help them do that, because I presume being able to engage even on social media comes at a cost. So how should they do that?
You could look at both ways. You've got to look at what works for you. There are great options out there where you can work with external agencies. We work internally through our own resources because we believe that this is the future and you have to deploy against it. So rather than work solely with external agencies, we have a great in-house team that does that for us. Having said that, from time to time, the expertise of your partners comes into play, and it's really a mix of both. But typically, I would say, depending on what resources are available to you and what kind of business you're in, it is important to look at the social media side of things.
Okay, so one last question as far as technology is concerned. One, what kind of disruptions are you seeing in this space because of technology? And two, how do you innovate where technology is concerned? Because every day something is changing. So how do you stay relevant?
Well, it's changing so quickly, right? I think you said it. I mean, I heard someone say the other day that technology has a shelf life of a banana, right? And the thing is, today you get out there, you kind of invest in it, and before you can pat yourself on the back and say, I've done a great job with this, you know, the world has moved on. Sure. So you have to be ensuring that you're continually ahead of the game as far as technology goes. You have to know what's coming in. You have to deploy against that. You have to keep an eye out for that. So you have to be changing all the time. It's extremely dynamic. But again, going back to what I said before, the key is about it being an enabler to your business, and you've got to get the basics right before you try and build on them.
Okay, let's talk about the merger with Starwood, and,
yes.
And I want to talk about it from the angle of people acquisition, managing people. Your business, more than any other business, depends heavily on
yes.
the availability of skilled manpower, but also managing that manpower. So your advice for our viewers, a lot of whom tell us that, you know, they hire someone, train them for 6 months, put in the time, effort, etc. for a couple of months, and then those people leave for better opportunities. So managing expectations and hiring the right people.
Well, what if you don't train them and they stay, right?
Is that an option?
I think that's a lot worse if you don't invest in your people and then they stay with you. So when you look at it, look, we have been. One of our core founding principles is about putting people first. It's one of our core values. We have a great deal of focus around ensuring that we strengthen our well-established reputation of being a company that takes great care of its people. We are in the people industry, like you rightly said. We deal with people all the time. We are consistently involved with all our stakeholders, and our philosophy really has been, if you take care of your people and they're happy, they'll take care of your guests and make your guests happy, sure. Right? So there's a lot of focus around that in our company. It is important to ensure that people not only come to work, but that your company, your culture allows people to find a place where they can not only work but train and grow their careers. So we offer people careers. We have lifers at Marriott, people that stay on in the company in various roles, right? And it's important to create opportunities. You could do that when you have growth, okay. Right? And with Starwood, with the merger, one of the things we have today is a pool of some exceptionally talented individuals, and we are able to ensure that we can provide growth opportunities to our folks. So it's about providing people with careers. And I think this merger has been fantastic for that. We have a pool of, like I said, exceptional folks today. And I think the Marriott culture at its core is something that you know, we're looking to preserve, and ensuring that the best practices of what Starwood legacy had are brought into the Marriott culture, so that we thrive and grow our culture as well in that respect.
Okay, we talk a lot about reskilling and upskilling on the leaders of tomorrow. How do you ensure that you are constantly training your employees? Is that a cost that a smaller brand can afford to take, or is the cost of not training much higher?
The cost of not training is clearly much higher. I think everyone understands that. The fact of the matter is you've got to look long term, right? Sometimes you get caught up into looking at a particular financial year or a particular month, and then start to think, can I defer this cost? I think what you have to understand is deferring that means deferring progress. So typically when you look at how this plays out, we have an extensive number of training programs in play at our hotels. There is the technical aspect of things where people are trained specifically on how to do things right in a hotel, and there's the leadership aspect of that. And there is counseling, and there are mentors, and there is a buddy program, and there are fast tracks today. And you know, with the growth numbers that we have to ensure that the next pipeline of leaders are ready to take on roles at our hotels. So growing the talent, providing that space, that platform for our people to grow their careers is fundamental to our success.
So as we wind down this conversation, you were talking about the profile of the Indian consumer as far as the hospitality space goes, and you know, you have an overview on the Asian market. Yes. How's the Indian consumer different from his or her peers, and are our brands then keeping up with the kind of changes in demands that are there?
So You know, the Indian customer, and I'm proud to say this, the Indian customer is a very sought after customer today. You know, there's an increasing amount of money being spent in India to woo the Indian consumer. We realized that several years ago. Today, if you look at our business mix, well over 75% of our business comes from the domestic customer across all segments. So we've been fortunate to kind of have been able to endear ourselves to this consumer base really early. I'm going to sort of answer this with an event we just recently did, which was Shaadi by Marriott, where we came out there and launched a new brand called Shaadi by Marriott. And this was really about endearing ourselves to the domestic customer. It was about us coming out there as a large international operator, the largest hotel company now in India, coming out there and saying, we want you to get married with us. We'd like you to repose your trust and faith in us being able to take care of a very important moment in your life, perhaps the most important moment. And the way we look at it, a wedding in India is not just about a wedding between a couple. In India, it's the family, it's the entire social community that couple sort of carries with them. And this whole exercise, right from operationally executing it to positioning Shaadi by Marriott to how we marketed it, was targeted to the Indian customer. So those little nuances are very, very important. So yes, the Indian customer is much in demand, and I'm sure given the way the government continues to drive the economy, this is going to get even bigger and better.
Neeraj, thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. If you are an MSME and you have any feedback for us or you have any questions for us, you can write in at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. On social media, tweet at me personally on Sunanda_J or on LOT_ET Now on Twitter. On Facebook, we are on Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, or call us on that number you see on your screen. We promise to have all your questions answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.